Look at these two bulldozers. On the left, the Shantui SD22, China's best-selling dozer, first built in the 1980s. On the right, the Komatsu D85, a Japanese machine designed a decade earlier. They are almost literally the same bulldozer. Now look at this one. The Shantui SD90C5, China's largest bulldozer, unveiled in 2012 with 962 horsepower. And next to it, the Caterpillar D11, an American machine that has dominated mining since 1986. The SD90 uses a Cummins engine, American. It offers a 12-month warranty or 2,000 hours, whichever comes first. The D11's frame is designed to be rebuilt and sent back to work for 30,000 hours or more. Spot the difference. Here's what's strange about this. China is the world's largest producer of bulldozers, and it's not even close. A company called Shantui, based in Shandong province, builds 2 out of every 5 crawler dozers made on Earth. More than Caterpillar, more than Komatsu. In 2010, Shantui produced over 10,000 bulldozers in a single year. Global production that year was 24,600. They are the largest bulldozer factory on the planet, and they export to over 170 countries. And yet no major Western mining operation runs a Shantui dozer on a primary production face. No Australian iron ore mine, no Canadian oil sands operator, no Chilean copper pit. The machines that move the most valuable dirt on Earth are still overwhelmingly Caterpillar and Komatsu. Why? Is it a technology problem? A quality problem? A trust problem? Or is there something deeper going on? Today we are going to answer that question, and in doing so reveal something important about how industrial capability actually works. If you are interested in the real stories behind heavy equipment, subscribe. We cover what nobody else does. To understand China's bulldozer problem, you have to start with the same place every Chinese industrial story starts, the 1950s. When the People's Republic was founded in 1949, China had almost no industrial base. What existed was concentrated in the northeast, built by the Japanese during their occupation, and heavily damaged by war. The new government made a choice that would define the next half-century: industrialize fast. And to do it, they turned to the Soviet Union. What followed was the largest technology transfer in modern industrial history, the so-called 156 projects. The Soviet Union helped China build more than 150 large-scale industrial facilities, steel mills, power plants, weapons factories, and engine plants. The investment was worth roughly $80 billion in today's dollars, equivalent to 45% of China's entire GDP in 1949. Soviet engineers trained Chinese workers. Soviet blueprints became Chinese factories. Soviet standards became Chinese standards. For heavy equipment, the pattern was the same. China's earliest bulldozers and tractors were built using Soviet designs, in factories modeled on Soviet plants, using Soviet-supplied tooling. The Luoyang First Tractor Manufacturing Plant, one of the 156 projects, produced tractors based on Soviet designs that would later be adapted for construction and even military use. This wasn't laziness, it was rational. When you're starting from zero, you don't invent. You license, you copy, you adapt, you produce. Then the Sino-Soviet split happened. By 1960, relations between Beijing and Moscow had collapsed. Soviet advisors were withdrawn virtually overnight. Thousands of engineers pulled out. Technical documents were taken or destroyed. Factories that were halfway through construction were left incomplete. China was suddenly alone with 1950s technology and no path to upgrade it. For the next 2 decades, through the Cultural Revolution and its aftermath, Chinese industry stagnated. The bulldozers being built in the 1970s were functionally the same machines that had been designed in the 1950s. They were improved incrementally, never fundamentally reimagined. Then came Deng Xiaoping and the economic reforms of 1978. China opened its doors, and when it did, it went shopping for bulldozer technology in the same place everyone else did, Japan. On January 1st, 1980, a small group of Chinese factories in Shandong province, the Jining Machine Factory, the Jining General Machinery Factory, and the Jining Power Machinery Factory merged to form the Shandong Bulldozer General Factory. They signed a technology license with Komatsu. That company would become Shantui. This is the moment that mirrors the Fiat deal for Russia's Lada almost exactly. Komatsu gave Shantui access to proven bulldozer designs, manufacturing processes, and engineering knowledge. In return, Komatsu got access to the Chinese market and a manufacturing partner. The arrangement worked. Shantui began producing dozers based on Komatsu technology. The SD16, the SD22, the SD32. Solid, reliable machines for the price point. By 1986, Shantui was exporting bulldozers to Australia. By 1990, cumulative sales had passed 2,000 units. By the mid-2000s, Shantui held 40% of China's domestic bulldozer market. In 1995, the partnership deepened. Komatsu and Shantui formed a joint venture called Komatsu Shantui Construction Machinery, based in Jining. Komatsu held 60%, Shantui held 30%, and Sumitomo Corporation held 10%. The venture manufactured hydraulic excavators for the Chinese market. For 27 years, this relationship gave Shantui access to Komatsu's engineering practices, quality systems, and manufacturing know-how. But here's the problem. The technology Komatsu licensed to Shantui was Komatsu technology from the 1980s and the 1990s. Just like Fiat sold to Russia car technology from 1966 that was state-of-the-art then, Komatsu's technology transfer gave Shantui a running start, but also someone else's ceiling. To build something genuinely better requires massive investment in research and development, in testing infrastructure, in metallurgy, in hydraulics, in control systems. It requires decades of iteration, driven by competitive pressure from customers who demand more. The Chinese domestic market did not provide that pressure. Inside China, Shantui's machines were good enough. They were affordable. They were available. Government infrastructure projects needed volume, not cutting-edge performance. Construction companies needed machines that worked, not machines that could survive 30,000 hours in a Pilbara iron ore mine. In 2021, after discussing changing business conditions, Komatsu dissolved the joint venture with Shantui. The partnership that had defined Shantui's technical development for nearly 3 decades was over. Shantui and Komatsu would go their separate ways. By this point, Shantui had already built the SD90 C5, a 106-ton, 962-horsepower bulldozer powered by a Cummins QST30 engine. On paper, it competes with the Cat D11. In reality, the gap is not in the spec sheet. It is in everything around the spec sheet. The D11's frame is built from castings welded by hand and by robot, tested with ultrasonic flaw detectors, and designed to be rebuilt 2 or 3 times over a 60,000-hour service life. Caterpillar's dealer network spans every mining region on Earth. A D11 operator at a mine in Western Australia can get parts flown in within 24 hours. The SD90 offers a 12-month warranty. CAT offers a rebuild program that turns a 15-year-old machine into an almost new one for less than half the price of buying fresh. That is not a technology gap. That is an ecosystem gap. And ecosystems take generations to build. This is where the Komatsu parallel becomes essential. Japan faced the exact same problem 60 years ago. After World War II, Japanese products were synonymous with cheap and poorly made. Komatsu was a small manufacturer of mining equipment and bulldozers. In the 1950s, it rebuilt itself during Japan's post-war reconstruction boom. By 1957, every Komatsu model ran on Komatsu engines. No more licensed foreign power plants. In 1964, Ryoji Kawai became president and declared the company's mission in a phrase borrowed from the board game Go, Maru-C encircle Caterpillar. Komatsu entered the United States market in 1967, directly challenging the world's largest bulldozer maker on its home turf. They were cheaper, they were lighter, they were dismissed, and then they weren't. Over the next 30 years, Komatsu relentlessly benchmarked itself against Caterpillar. Every year, Kawai presented his managers with priorities modeled directly on Caterpillar's performance metrics. Komatsu invested in its own engine technology, its own hydraulics, its own undercarriage systems. The company won the Deming Prize for quality. By the 1980s, Komatsu had built the D575A, the largest production bulldozer in the world, a machine that weighed over 150 tons and produced 1,150 horsepower. Nobody was calling Japanese equipment cheap anymore. Today, Komatsu is the world's second largest construction equipment manufacturer. Its bulldozers run alongside Caterpillars in the toughest mines on Earth. The gap between Japanese and American bulldozer quality no longer exists. but it took 40 years of aggressive internal investment to close it. So where does China stand? Shantui today produces over 30,000 units of construction machinery per year. Revenue exceeded $1.2 billion in 2021. They export to 170 countries. In the first quarter of 2017, their domestic bulldozer market share reached nearly 80%. They are, by unit volume, the largest bulldozer manufacturer on the planet. And they are doing things that neither CAT nor Komatsu have done yet. In 2019, Shantui commercialized the world's first 5G remote-controlled high-power bulldozer. In 2020, the SD17EX became the world's first pure electric bulldozer to roll off a production line. They are investing in autonomous operation, digital factories, and intelligent construction modes. In 2016, Shantui developed K-series hydrostatic bulldozers and entered European and American markets for the first time. These are not incremental improvements on the 1980s Komatsu designs. These are genuine leaps. But here is the uncomfortable truth that runs through every story of industrial development. The gap between building a bulldozer that works and building a bulldozer that a mine manager in Perth or Tucson would bet a $200 million operation on is enormous. It is not just about horsepower and blade capacity. It is about the metallurgy of the frame castings, the precision of the hydraulic valves, the software calibration of the transmission, the training of the dealer technicians, the 3 a.m. phone call when a machine goes down in the middle of a shift and the mine is losing $50,000 an hour. It is about 10,000 hours of field data proving the undercarriage does not fail. It is about an operator who climbed into a CAT at 22 and is now 55 and has never once been let down. Trust is earned over decades. Every country that has successfully broken into the global construction equipment market has done it the same way. Start protected, improve aggressively, then compete globally. Japan did it. South Korea is doing it with Doosan and Hyundai. And China is attempting it with Shantui, XCMG, Sany, Liugong, and a dozen others. The question is whether Shantui can do what Komatsu did, use the protected period not just to produce machines, but to genuinely build capability, to invest in research and development, to benchmark relentlessly against the world's best, to push toward a level of engineering and support that Western mine operators will trust with their most critical operations. China builds rockets, it builds space stations, it builds hypersonic missiles and nuclear submarines. It built BYD, which is now the world's largest electric vehicle manufacturer, threatening every legacy automaker on Earth. The argument that China cannot build sophisticated machinery is over. The question is whether it will apply that same intensity to bulldozers, because right now, Shantui makes more bulldozers than anyone. It just does not make the ones that move the world's most valuable dirt. And until it does, it will remain what Russia's Lada was for decades. Cheap, available, functional, and never anyone's first choice. Next time you see a yellow Shantui dozer working a road project in Africa or a construction site in Southeast Asia, remember that it is not just a machine. It is a snapshot of where China is in a 50-year industrial race, one that Japan started in the 1960s, one that Komatsu won by the 1990s, and one that Shantui is still running. If you found this interesting, subscribe and like this video. I'll see you in the next one.